I mean, have they been deals that you've been encouraged or that you felt it was prudent to make because of...
We thought it was prudent. The developers were being opportunistic, expanding their portfolios and taking over other projects which couldn't continue. Their financing disappeared for their construction or renovations. And several hotels that were in the midst of being renovated, and the construction financing was pulled. And then these developers took over the properties, and we thought those were great opportunities since the significant discounts, effectively two-thirds or half through their renovations, and we thought those were wonderful opportunities. And it's an area we kind of focused on.
Okay. And, I mean, just generally, what we've seen is when we look at the data year after year in this survey and see how family offices generally have been involved in private equity, we've seen an increased involvement, I mean, very broadly speaking, from year to year. And I think the trend that we probably see is that there's more money looking to go into direct investments now, possibly a bit less going into funds of funds, that kind of trend. And I wondered, I mean, it sounds to me as though your approach has been pretty fixed for some time, but I wondered if I could ask, if it has changed.
It changed 2 years ago, where we started putting more allocation to private equity. Or with respect to these two fellows with their family members of the private equity fund, we've got more of the trust involved with them in their activities. And we started doing more of the looking for some of the members, funds. We've done a few with UBS. We're looking for opportunities that make sense to the trust and the beneficiaries involved.
And can I ask you,
for example, in funds of funds, for example, we've been looking for opportunities where there are not more opportunities where there are 5 or 6 year terms versus 12 or 14 year terms for some of them.
Okay. Thank you. And I wondered if I could just ask you, why you have, increased your activity in private equity. I mean, we asked this question in the survey, and the two most popular answers from memory are either because people think that this will outperform public markets, or as a form of diversification, which I guess are two quite obvious answers. But I wanted, in your case, what was your motivation?
It was more of an allocation from our what I'll call generally fixed income. We didn't see it a couple of years ago. We reached the conclusion prospectively we didn't see the yields being attractive for some time, going to become attractive for some time, and then so we kind of focused on private equity.
Okay. Yeah.
We didn't want to increase our allocation at that time to the markets.
Okay. It's interesting because one would think, in a way, I think quite a lot of family offices have done similar things, and one, in my kind of very kind of high-level view of things, it seems like that's increasing the risk of portfolios to a degree. But I guess that if the portfolios become even more diversified in some way or another, that's not necessarily the case. And I wondered, whether you think that that's effectively increased the risk of the portfolio generally, or whether there's been a way of mitigating that.
You're correct, and it does add the diversity, as you suggested. But it's difficult to argue that it hasn't added to the risk of the overall portfolio. And we review the risk tolerance of the various stakeholders frequently. But I think there's a general consensus, at least within this family, that we can't keep a significant portion of our assets in institutional grade securities.
when they're not